Welcome to School's Out 80's Comedy Story Time.
Hey everybody, welcome to School's Out 80's Comedy Story Time. This is an exciting time. Today we have a special guest coming to us all the way from Dallas, Texas. Say hello, Dawn Stroka Morris.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome, Dawn.
Okay.
It's going to be a really fun episode, guys. First and foremost, I want to, say hello out there to Leanne Savage, who was my old co-host, and she's welcome back anytime she wants to come back. But she just needs to spend time right now with her family and her kids and everything, which is fine. But Dawn's really excited to be on the show, and she's going to be our new co-host. So, like I did with Leanne when we first met Leanne, we're going to talk to Dawn, find out some funny things. And here's something really interesting about Dawn. Dawn, you grew up in the 80s.
Yes, I did, with the big hair and the bands and the ripped up jeans. Some of the greatest memories I have. I mean, it's funny to see people actually trying to bring that stuff back now.
I know, isn't it? So Dawn, who was your favorite band in the 80s?
I literally skipped all around. I don't know if I have a favorite. Probably Def Leppard.
Okay.
Probably Def Leppard. I would say that over, other bands, but I liked Poison, Motley Crue, listen to all kinds. I mean, I even got into stuff like Ozzy Osbourne,
Nice.
One of my favorite songs right now, Ozzy is in it with Post Malone.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Excellent.
But
our last guest, he used to tour with Ozzy.
Nice. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
I remember some vivid stories about Ozzy Osbourne.
He has a great story about Ozzy. Ozzy was coming out of the bus at 3 a.m. in the morning in Arizona, and evidently Ozzy had drank too much. Surprise, and got a little tipsy, and then got a little sick, and then turned to one of his roadies and grabbed a bottle of whiskey and walked right back into the bus and kept going.
Well, there you go. A little bit of hair of the dog that bit you, right?
Yeah, exactly. Ozzy, yeah, no fear. No fear. So you grew up in the 80s. So we're thinking you probably went to high school in the 80s.
Yes.
And so that was probably around the time that Madonna was like really big, right?
Yes. And if you were a fan of Madonna, you were a wild child. That's how you were perceived. I recall even some of the girls, that you would, today consider Madonna nothing. And, or as far as like, not nothing in the sense, that she didn't accomplish anything, meaning like, they just weren't into it, like now they think of her music as not like, it's not risque, but back then it was like, okay. And if you think about it, every kind of era has decade or whatever with music that they have that mover, that actually takes something and sets a different bar, right? Well, Madonna was one of those, entertainers back then in the music industry that raised that bar to what was acceptable at that time. And now it's like anything she does, we look back at it, it doesn't seem like a whole lot because of the craziness that you see in some of the videos now. But back then it was a big deal. So if you listen to Madonna, or listen, to some, like, especially like Ozzy and stuff like that, when you were talking about him, people kind of labeled you as a little bit wild, but I imagine it's probably back the same like in the Elvis Presley days when people were like talking about him shaking his hips, and if you listen to him. So that's the kind of experience that I went through with Madonna and some of those, in the 80s with the people around you, through high school, but I mean, I was always, went my own way, so I was like, whatever, I listened to whatever, and I didn't care what anybody thought.
Hey, that's awesome. That's awesome. So back in the 80s, you and your girlfriends, when you're like, hanging out at the school dances and things like that, can you think of any funny stories you'd like to share with folks?
I'm trying to think of some. Okay, so back in that day, you know, I remember going out to the dances and stuff with all the girls and everything, and it was like you would get really wild on the dance floor, and dancing was just becoming like a huge thing at the high school dances back then, you know, where most people just kind of stood around. I remember where people would just stand around and, you know, you'd be waiting for the boy to come ask you to dance, or, you know, you would just, not a lot of people would dance, you know. But I remember there was this one Madonna song, and we were out there dancing and stuff, and everybody was looking at us like, oh my God, look at the way they're dancing to this song. But it like enticed people to like want to come and dance. And then, you know, you'd get the guys out there and stuff like that. But I remember one time we were doing that, and my girlfriend just like went crazy because some people, they just, you know, they feel the music and that song comes on, and she was just like dancing around. And the funny part is that she ended up tripping.
Oh no!
Oh. Yeah, we're like, oh my God! It's like, so we picked her up, and then we just went back to dancing. You know what I mean? So.
Heck yeah. That's awesome.
But that was one story that I had around some of the Madonna music.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. So you and your girlfriends back in the day probably watched a lot of MTV.
Oh yes, everybody loved the videos, and they were so cool. I mean, and then we would go and talk about like, hey, did you see, you know, what was on the video last night, you know, and stuff. And we're like, oh yeah, you know, because that was the thing to do back then was, you know, watch shows and TVs. You know, we didn't have a lot of the stuff that, you know, kids have nowadays. So that was definitely one of the biggest things to do, was sit there and watch MTV. I mean, music was huge. It was everywhere. You know, you'd wake up in the morning and you would throw on your cassette. You know, I remember having the boom boxes.
Right.
You know, the boom boxes, they walk around, you know, and stuff. And you throw your little cassette tapes in and stuff, and then they'd get all wound up. You'd have to pull it out and fix the cassette tape and put it back in. But it was like, seriously, as soon as you woke up in the middle, you know, in the morning, you'd put on your music, you listen to all the way to school. As soon as you get out of school, you pop it back in, listen to it all night. So, but the videos, when they came out with starting having the videos, right, it was really exciting, you know what I mean? Because then you got to see, you know, like your favorite songs and the people in there, you know, dancing and putting the music to that. It was just, it's so funny to see or to recall back and look at those things that like we were first movers in the 80s with some of the stuff that we did, you know what I mean? That took us to different levels, because that's in the 80s, that's when they started coming out more, you know, with easier way to listen to music and stuff like that. But the videos, oh my God, yes, I love the music videos. I still watch them to this day when I can get on the music videos.
Well, and kids that didn't grow up with cassettes, they don't know the anxiety that you had when you're with a friend of yours.
Oh yeah.
And you put it in the cassette player and you're driving down the road, and all of a sudden the tape just comes right out at you. And that happened a lot.
Yeah.
How many of my friends' cassettes I destroyed that way? And I didn't mean to. It just happened that way. Like, it tended to be like their favorite stuff too, like AC/DC, Back in Black. Hey, John, put in and I put it in, and the cassette player just eats it, and it just comes out. And then you try to fix it, and you can't fix it. And the other thing kids don't know today is, like, music is cheap. Like, when we were kids, that cassette that just got eaten up was about probably $8, and minimum wage was like $3.
Right. You had to work a lot.
Yeah, over 2 hours just to get one cassette tape. And
that just sounds crazy, right? I mean, like seriously, like, yeah.
Oh yeah, the music people are like multi-million, and like, I wonder when they went to CDs, because CDs last a lot longer than cassettes do.
Yeah.
That maybe because you had to, at some point, if you had something you really liked, you had to buy it more than once.
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, I'm thinking back to myself and Beatles' Greatest Hits. I bought it at least 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you could, I mean, you know, just kind of like, people today don't realize, like, in the 80s, the obstacles that we had, like, you know, like, we bought magazines with rock stars in it to see what the rock stars did. Because we had no idea what they looked like.
No, at all. Like their biggest or the biggest thing now is like, it's not buffering fast enough. Buffering fast enough? Are you kidding me? Like, and they get upset about it. It's like try taking a cassette tape and having this tape way over here, and you're having to wind it up, and then it's all wrinkled, and then it's messed up, and you're just praying it works, and then you put it in, and it skips a little bit, but hey, it's better than nothing at that point. But I mean, seriously, I talk to my kids sometimes even about like the TVs and stuff when you're sitting there and you're watching all of that on the TVs, everything on your phones and stuff. And I was like, try not having a phone. try having a big, huge TV that looks like, I don't know, like a chest.
I know. Yeah, exactly. That's what I always talk about. Like, TVs were furniture in the 80s. And
yeah, right. They were. Oh my gosh. Yeah, they're like coffee tables.
Yeah. I mean, my brother, when we watched football on TV, he would kick his own TV when he would, what the ref would do. And now, I mean, what are you going to do? Punch your TV that's on the So, yeah, I mean, kids, they definitely got it better than.
Oh, heck yeah. I mean, well, I love the joke to this day that they make about, about the kid being the remote to the TV because you didn't have remotes. You'd be like,
oh, yeah.
Where's the channel? I remember so many times going over there and changing the channel, for my dad, or hitting the side because the picture's messing up. You know what I mean? I remember the antennas. We used to have antennas on the TVs to get it, and people would take and put hangers and stuff to try to get the signal to come in better on your TV because it would be all like scratchy. It's like, I don't even think they know what that looks like. Some of the kids.
Like, so you had pay TV. When pay TV first came out, everybody got basically the same box for like HBO. HBO was the first pay TV that came out. And everybody got the same box, and some of it you got with your normal cable, and then some of it was more expensive, like HBO.
Oh, yes.
The first bit of it. And so like we got free HBO for like 90 days or whatever, and then it went away. But you still had the box because you had cable.
Yes.
So like you'd go over to a friend's house who didn't have HBO, and one of your friends would literally stand and punch in the button just a little bit, and you could kind of get HBO, but it was, and you'd make them, you'd take your turns, and it would go on for
right.
Standing there for an hour with their finger on the thing, so you could all watch, whatever HBO.
The stuff that we people do to be entertained.
Oh, yeah.
Seriously, like who in their right mind is going to want to sit there and do that? But the thing is that it's like your human nature takes over. You want to be connected. I mean, we all want to be connected, and that's like one of the biggest things. So it's like what we do for entertainment and TV and just to, I guess connect to that outside world to know it's a bigger place and what's going on out there. But thankfully, I mean, I'm thankful for it. Even to this day, like when technology, we have issues, you know what I mean? And you're over there and somebody's they're yelling at the phone, like internet work. I need to hurry up and get this because that lady needs this document. And you're over here and you're mad at this phone, and you're calling your smartphone a stupid phone. The irony of that, right? And then you're like, well, and then I always be like, stop. It's like, be happy you have it. You know what I mean? Remember back in the day, in the 80s and that you didn't have, even some of the 90s where, I remember the bag phones, those humongous, I talk to my kids about those, bag phones, and sometimes you can catch a glimpse of them on some of these comedy shows that you run across, where I think there was one with Vince Vaughn, and he was driving in this like car thing, and he pulls this humongous phone out with this antenna that's like long as your arm almost, you know what I mean? And I'm like, look, that those actually existed. Those big, huge, I remember the bag phones, like in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, the actual bag phones that you would plug in your car. And they would look like an old time, phone. And I actually seen a meme here recently on Facebook of one of the phones, like that would hang on the wall, right? And
Right.
then it has the long cords. And I can sit here and remember memories of sitting at my kitchen table with my feet kicked up on the table and holding the phone here and twiddling those cords and, you know, messing with those cords, you know. But the thing is that it's like you wouldn't want to go back to that. But it's funny how some of the fondest memories or some of the craziest things that you experienced that you're just like, but if you think about it, people are always trying to replicate little things like that for that glimpse of taking nostalgia, of taking you back, right? Okay. So when you see those old time phones and stuff, I try to get my kids stuff like that. You know, like, here, look, like, you know, here's an old phone or like type phone, and let them, and I talk to them about that to kind of give them that experience of the knowledge of knowing, you know, like where we've come from, you know,
Right.
because it's and like you look at those huge phones and you laugh at them and they're like, oh my God, this is like the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, you know. I was like, but it was actually at that time one of the freaking coolest things you ever seen, you know. I mean, it was like, it was amazing. You know, you loved having those phones on the walls. And remember using the pay phones? All those things, all those pay phones. And you'd have to call collect, and you'd be like, you know, and, you know, call so-and-so collect, and they'd be like, do you accept the charge? You know, and sometimes they'd say yes, sometimes they'd say no. And you'd be like, oh crap, okay, you know. But luckily I lived in a town small enough that, you know, you could walk from one edge of the town to the other in like literally 25 minutes. You know.
No, that's awesome. So, so I got a funny story about people doing collect calls. So a buddy of mine, I promised him when we started doing this podcast that I wouldn't ever name him by name. So I didn't any of my buddies by name. But so a buddy of mine, we would go to the movies together, and we'd get out of the movies, and we were like 12, 13 years old, 11, whatever we were. And he would go to the payphone, call his mom, and be like, will you accept a collect call from, you know, we'll call him Bill. And then she would go, no, I will not. And then she would come pick us up at the movie theater. Like, she knew that, like, when she got that call, it was time to pick us up at the movie theater, even though she didn't pay for it.
Oh, that's actually pretty smart.
Yeah. Well, you know,
remember the pagers?
Yeah, the pagers. Yeah.
Okay, my daughter was asking me about the pager. Like, we were talking about it, and I had described what the pager was and stuff, and she was, so I had to explain it, you know, so trying to put something like that in layman terms, you know, you try to, and even then it's funny, like, because you want to know how it works and operates, you know, the whole intention of the pager, you know, but when you're explaining it to somebody that does never come in contact with a pager, you know, you're over there explaining to them, like, okay, there's that, then you have to pull over at, you know, at the gas station and put your quarter in to call this person that just sent you this text. And that's how, or more or less a text in a sense, you know what I mean, of the number telling you who to call, who's calling you. And they would be like, that existed? Like, that was like, and I was like, actually, it was very ingenious because it started opening up, you know, people's minds on what other options are there out there for it, you know. And I mean, we're still spanning from it, you know, but some of the right. So I was like, but some of the stuff that, you know, you're going through today, you know, with that, you know, that you see it is going to be obsolete, or not necessarily obsolete, but it could be, but some of it is going to be more advanced. And then everything's going to continue to keep raising the bar on technology, on how you interact and come in contact, you know, with people. I was like, but so I was trying to explain it, but that is so, even, I guess technology is so advanced right now. So how you compare it, like, from now to like being a little bit smarter, we're already in that technology age. So it doesn't seem like much of a gap. But when you look from pager, bag phone to what we have now, it's like, I don't know how much better it can get to be able to have that kind of comparison. You know what I'm saying? Because that's some crazy stuff back then. I mean, it's hilarious to think about some of the stuff that we used to have to do, but it was fun. It was fun.
Absolutely. And, you know, the pager was a status symbol too. Like, people don't realize that if you saw somebody in like a church setting or a community setting, and they had a pager, it was considered to be a status symbol. Like, you saw it on their belt, you know, be it a nurse or a doctor, and you'd be like, they're important. Like, you'd be like, and they'd get paged out of a public thing and they'd check their thing, be like, oh, okay. And then they would leave and you'd be like, wow, these people are really important. And, and now it's just, they get a text to their cell phone. That's their pager. So,
Yeah.
so okay. So want people to know, because you have a pretty eclectic high school background. I think we can all relate to. I think you had told me on an earlier conversation that sometimes you struggled with maybe getting to class, which I can absolutely relate to. And most of the people that'll be listening around the world can relate to, but kind of walk us through your junior year of high school.
Okay. So, junior year of high school, I actually had, prior to that, had played sports every year. And, but by the time I started getting into my junior year, I got tired of having to walk to and from school for all the practices.
Right.
So I, because I lived, like 2.5 miles away from the school. So, or I lived in a range where you didn't get the bus. So you had to walk, but it was still quite a wise way. Because, when they say, oh, they're a 2-mile radius from the school and then you get to ride the bus. If not, you have to walk or get taken by your parents, which is a crazy rule, because what if you live like 1.979 miles, you know what I mean? And there I am walking, and this kid gets to ride the bus that lives like 4 houses down that way, But anyway, my point is that I would have to walk back and forth, and it got to be too much when I'm dredging through the snow. And even my junior year, I would have to walk to and from school or find a ride, from one of my friends, because I had parents both that worked.
Right.
So they didn't have the ability to take me to school and pick me up and stuff like that. So I had it, pretty rough, I guess. Not bad.
Sure.
Bad. I mean, come on. We all consider everything that we go through rough, right? Everybody does, in a sense, because you're gauging it against something, a little bit better. So everybody has their level of what is hard. So I decided to drop out of sports. So what that led me into kind of, don't have any responsibilities, as far as like commitments and things like that. You can kind of be led to where you just kind of like, to me, school wasn't as important my junior year.
Right.
So I started skipping school a lot. Okay. I'm not going to lie. I got into it because I didn't have to get up early anymore. And I think it was kind of a result, if I think about it, leading me into that was that I had been, like on a strict regimen for so long with sports, because I'd played sports since I was in 5th grade all the way up through then, and I played basketball and volleyball and ran track. And
Right.
I loved track. I was really good at track and stuff, but I decided I was going to go ahead and just give sports a break. So I think I became a little bit lazy, kind of saying, hey, I'm not going to. So I thought my junior year was going to just be like a breeze. I'm just going to go to school, do my thing. I was really, really smart with in school. So the classes came very easy to me. I was one that I could literally skip school for 2 or 3 days and then come in and have a test in front of me that I didn't really know too much of the material about, because I just missed the last 3 days. And everything, if with school, leads up to the test is everything you're learning right, before they.
Sure.
And I would go in and I would literally ace the test, and I'd have people pissed off, mad at me. I'd have people mad at me because they'd be like, how is that possible, Dawn? I come to school every day. I'm here in the morning. I stay until, and you can just waltz in after skipping for 2 days and ace that test, and I'd laugh and I'd be like, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I've got a really good memory and I memorize everything, So I'd kind of and they'd be like, okay, but just go home and try to memorize the material and you'll do great on the test. And they'd be like, well, I get test anxiety. Well, I don't know what to help you with that, other than tell yourself that you're a great test taker, because I just could do it, what I mean? So I just ended up, I think, and that was another result of it, was that one was that I was kind of like tired of all the go, 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 go. And I wanted to just relax for a while. I mean, we all kind of go through that even now with work, you know what I mean? You go, go, go for a while, and then all of a sudden you're like, I need a vacation. So I kind of looked at, I think, my junior year as a kind of a vacation from everything. So I was skipping a lot, sleeping in a lot. And I ended up skipping a lot, where the vice principal, which, he loved me. His name was Mr. Piper, and he actually had a little giddy up in his step, and he walked with a cane, and he was just this adorable old little man, but he was just amazing, and he just adored me for whatever reason, and I don't know why, because I was always in his office for skipping all the time. I skipped so much that they were calling my mom at work all the time to tell her, because you know how they put a phone call in when you're not at school. They would call her, and finally, you know, like halfway through the year, my mom was like, don't call me anymore. Like told the school, she told the registrar, don't call me anymore. She was like, I can't do anything about it. She doesn't want to, you know, I got to go to work, and, you know, my husband's at work, and because we need to make a living, and she sleeps in, there's nothing I'm going to do. I've talked with her. She's not going to listen. So you guys deal with it more or less, you know? And which was, in a sense, I was like, that was pretty cool, I guess. You know, my parents were like, you know, hey, it's your life. You're going to, you know, we're not going to fight with you about it. You do, and they kind of just let me do, you know, what I wanted in that sense. And I ended up in his office one too many times, where he was just like, Dawn, you like literally have skipped way too many times that I'm going to have to like tell you, you're going to have to repeat, you know, your 11th grade. And I literally was only like maybe 3 weeks away from the end of the year when that happened. But I respected it. You know what I mean? I created my own bed. I was going to sleep in it. And I remember sitting there talking, and I think I even shed a little tear. And he was just like, oh, it's okay. He actually came and gave me a hug. It was like, you know, I'm so sorry. I really wish that I would have been able to, you know, pull it for you. And he did all year long, tried. He really did. And I actually got, they do like a thing for the end of the year, like stuff that they do. And they do like voting on, you know, like biggest this or biggest skipper, you know, who's most likely to succeed type of this stuff. You know what I mean? And I actually got voted for biggest skipper my senior year, and I think it's in some kind of yearbook or somewhere, some kind of posting that I was the biggest school skipper. But they let me make up my credits really quick, you know, and stuff like that. So I did. So I repeated my junior year, but who wouldn't want to go back and have another year of high school, right? Right. So, I mean, I didn't think of anything back then, you know, I mean, sometimes I would get a little embarrassed about it when I would talk about it, but I chalk it up to just one of those funny things that happen. I mean, I've learned to not take life too seriously, and I've become successful. I've done all this stuff, and it's not going to make or break your life if you mess up a little bit in high school, you know what I mean? And it's like, and I'm a little guilty sometimes of letting my daughter, you know, who's in 10th grade, and my kids kind of like have a little bit of flexibility. And I'm like, if you're not going to go to, if you want to go to Harvard, you want me to send you to Yale, you want to be like, you know, do something like that, which is amazing. And I know you can do that if you want it. Then it's going to be extremely important for you to, like, you know, go and make sure your attendance is in order, because they check things like that, you know. So I just kind of gear them towards saying, you know, what it is that you want to be when you're older. And then I don't sweat those little small things, like if they want to stay home one day, you know what I mean, because they're tired, whatever, you know. I don't really stress, because I don't think it's going to make or break you. It didn't make or break me, and I don't think it make or breaks anybody. I mean, it all is what you do with it and stuff like that. So I ended up getting an extra year of school in there, went back, buckled down, and, you know, ended up graduating and going off to college right away and stuff. So it's awesome. So I mean, it was a funny story, you know. I mean, one of my funny stories, you know, of things that I've gone through, because, you know, it was pretty, you know, looking back, and, you know, and just that phone call with my mom, and she told me about that like years and years later. I didn't even know, and she was like, when we chalk it up now to just one of those things, and we laugh about it, you know. One time several years ago, she had mentioned that, and I was just like, oh my God, Mom, that is just so funny. I'm sorry that I put you through that, you know, but hey, it is what it is, you know. I mean, you live and you learn.
Just real quick. So I think it's important for everybody to know this. So, okay, so you had a little bit of an issue in your junior year, but at the end of the day, you got out of high school. So what do you call somebody that gets out of high school?
I don't know, John, what do you call that person?
A high school graduate. And,
oh.
and you know, nobody cares. Like, nobody cares. Nobody sits there and pesters somebody about, how long did it take you to get out of high school? Nobody cares. And it's just like when you're at a dinner party or whatever, and somebody says they went to this university or that university or that university. Nobody says, "Oh, did you graduate?" Nobody really cares. The only individual that would care about something like that would be like a prospective employer, and that's about it. Like I have a 21-year-old, and he's so good in art, and he actually wants to be a professional tattoo artist. And I told him to go to art school, and he's like, "How long should I go?" I'm like, "I don't care. Like, go there and network with people. Maybe that'll open up some doors. Maybe you'll dig it and you'll want to go all 4 years. Maybe you won't. But at the end of the day, you go to a dinner party or you're sitting in a bar with a bunch of people, and people ask you, 'Hey, where'd you go to school?' And you're like, 'I went to such and such art school.' And everybody's like, 'Oh, that's cool.' Nobody's going to ask if you graduate. Nobody cares.
Yeah, no, they don't.
It's like we care, because it's just natural and normal to think about, but nobody else cares. Only so I don't know. Just wanted to mention that. But hey, we definitely have something in common in terms of like skipping school. So when I wasn't skipping school in high school and college, I was tardy. And you don't even hear that word anymore, tardy.
Oh, yeah.
And those pink slips. Remember those pink slips you used to have?
Oh, yes, I remember carrying those to class many a times.
Yes, and it was kind of a badge of disgrace to have a pink slip. I mean, I can remember like sitting in my SUV at the time. It was like a 1979 blacktop maroon Blazer, and like I would have like kind of a sick feeling in my gut going, "Oh my God, I got to go get another tardy slip because I was at a bar last night till 12 and I couldn't get up." And I'm not condoning underage drinking. I was 18, and you could drink at 18 in Kansas, where real close to where I grew up. But anyway, so I go in and I get my little tardy slip, and then I go up and I do that several times throughout my senior year of high school. And at some point, the individual who wrote the little pink slips was doing something else, like checking in library books or something. And there was a big stack of pink slips. And I'm like, okay, don't have to come to her anymore. Problem solved. And so I wrote my own pink slips like for the remainder of my high school career, until one day in art class, the art teacher got a pink slip from me and a pink slip from somebody else, and the signatures were a little bit different. That created a little bit of static in my day. So, but I can relate. I think everybody can relate to like sleeping in, sleeping through.
Oh, yeah.
And
a lot of that stuff. I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff. I remember, producing my own report cards.
Okay, all righty then.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And the funny thing is that we would go and we would, and I didn't realize this was a thing until somebody was like, "Well, why don't you go change your report card?" And what do you mean? Like, change that B to an A if you want, whatever, Yeah. And I was like, but why? You know what I mean? My parents didn't even ask for report cards. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were just those parents. I mean, I was a girl, number one. Okay.
Right.
And I, back then, I mean, it was like you just were, and at least around my atmosphere that I was in, not every household, because I can't speak for, every household, but my parents, they were young and stuff. And it was kind of like I was just kind of being raised on that impression, I think. And I don't think anybody actually told me it. It was just, I think we all kind of have this nature about us, where we just kind of figure out what life is. You're on autopilot, more or less, And it's like, I guess my autopilot was kind of gearing me towards expecting that I was going to just, graduate high school. I was going to get married. I was going to have a family. My husband was going to work and take care of us, and I was going to, work a little bit, but I was going to raise the kids, so that was kind of my idea of what my life was going to be like. So, when I was going through high school, it was more about me just having fun. I wasn't looking at it as a means or a tool to get me to a higher level. So I was just like, well, I'm just going to have fun with it. So when they were like, "Hey, why are you fixing your report cards?" I was like, well, I don't need to or whatever. And then I was like, well, so I went, they were like, well, come with me. I'm going to go fix mine. So we went to the library, because back then you didn't have computers and everything. So people would go and make a copy of their report card, and they would cut the little A or B out or whatever, and then they'd get glue, and then they would put it, on the report card, and then they would smooth it out, and then they would make a copy of that, and they would make a couple copies until it would come out where you couldn't see that it was cut and pasted. And then they'd be like, look, see, and then I go take and show this to my parents, because my parents aren't going to know that nothing was electronic back then. How were they supposed to check it against anything? Call the school? Oh yeah, who's going to do that? Right? So I was like, okay, well, for, I guess, giggles, let me do it. You know what I mean? Let me see what it is. But there was so many kids in there doing it. Literally, I was like, there was like a line waiting to use the copier to recreate and fix their report cards. I was like, my gosh, that had to be stressful. Sit here and have to worry about changing a B to an A. You know what I mean? My gosh, But anyway, it was funny. I mean, and even the librarians knew what the kids were doing, and they just, whatever. They were just like, here's more paper. They didn't care. They were just like, whatever. It was pretty funny. I mean, it's a pretty funny story that kids would do. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know, now you can't, because everything's sent to the parents directly, electronically. Yeah. But it's like, it's funny. That was a funny story that I had, with high school. It kind of cracks me up to think about now that there was lines, pools of kids doing that with their report cards back then.
Did you and your girlfriends ever sneak into bars?
Yes, we did. And I actually have a funny story. One time I was like, we wanted to go to this one bar, but they were really particular. So they wanted to get fake IDs, like people would get IDs. But back then it was kind of hard to get an ID, right? I actually was in that time frame when the fake ID places started popping up everywhere to create them and make them. I remember that being like a thing that started up when I think when that happened, I was about 18 or 19, but you would have to drive like 45 minutes away to go to these places, because they were more in the bigger cities, and stuff like that. And I was probably about 45 minutes out of Chicago. So we would go, but anyway, we would get into the bars, when we could sneak into them and stuff like that. So we got kicked out of some of them, and you know what I mean? But it was like, hey, it was worth it. I was here an hour. I had a drink, and they didn't card me, and they didn't ask me this. And then it was embarrassing being escorted out, like, come on, but.
Did they ever take your fake ID away? Did they?
Yes. And actually they took my ID away from me, and it happened to be my aunt's ID that I had that was a little older than me, and they took it, and I don't know if I ever told her that I had taken it, you know what I mean? Because I probably shouldn't have done that, but she was really cool. So when I told her, she was just like, all right, don't ever do that again.
That's funny. I got a fake ID story. So when I was in college, one of my fraternity brothers was 21. So it was a real ID, actually. It wasn't a fake ID. And he and I really didn't look alike. like I had short black hair. He had short black hair. I was kind of like medium build, and he was much broader built. And I can say his name, Lance. And it's so funny because Lance kind of has bigger like bottom lip than like most people do. Mm-hmm. And so like when I would when I get carded, I just go like this. I just go, and the guy would be like, okay, because like you're thinking like there's 20 people deep. I have dark hair. He has dark hair. I kind of look like him a little bit. Okay, whatever. Go in. So that's a good one. And another one was like I had friends of mine that made fake IDs, and some of them made like really bad fake IDs. Really bad, like the way the kids get their licenses now is because what we did in the 80s and the early 90s, because like back in the day in Missouri, you had a white license, and all you had was like a little red seal. And so really to make a fake ID, you just take like an X-Acto knife and cut off the top, so you had the blue where it said driver's license in like a blue background with white writing. Mm-hmm. And then you had the picture, and then you had the seal. So friends of mine would just take an X-Acto knife and cut around the seal. So you just take an inlay and put it on top of the license, and then you would put plastic on top of it. Mm-hmm. But then the key was the number. So so you had to put white out on the number, and then you had to put the number on it and lay it down. And it was pretty cool. But like, to give you an idea how bad one of these guys' IDs was, he didn't put any plastic on the top of it. So he didn't like secure it at all. All he did was take the inlay and put it in the little plastic thing in his billfold. And I was standing right, I wasn't doing it, wasn't my ID or anything. We were standing right in the like the 7-Eleven kind of cash and go place, grab beer and go kind of place.
Right.
And the woman's really old, and you can tell by looking at her, she's probably in her early 80s, and she can barely see anything. And she holds up the ID, and she's like, "Is that an L or a 1?"
Does it matter?
Like, you can't be 6L, you can be 6'1", but you can't. There is no L. It's so funny. But she gave us beer. I mean, she gave my buddy beer, and it was just funny. The whole fake ID thing was just.
Well, you know why she didn't probably question it? She was so stumped on, is this a 1 or an L, that she wasn't even thinking about the age, and was like, there you go.
Yeah. And
oh, you weren't worried about my height, then my age? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it was so lackadaisical. People just whatever, kid. Go ahead. Whatever. It's just like, nowadays I tell my kids, oh my God, watch your P's and Q's. One of my kids went in and bought liquor at a liquor store right down the road from me. And so I walked in there with a picture of him, and I showed every person in the liquor store, do not serve this kid.
That's hilarious. It is. It's so funny.
Oh my God. He comes back.
He's like, man,
he's only like 16 years old. He got served. He's sitting on my back porch drinking Fireball. Where'd you get Fireball?
The kids, when you're young and you go for the liquor, I mean, seriously, like, we go crazy, we go strong. I remember being like, going straight for the Goldschlager with the gold chips in the bottom. It's like the kids go for that crazy strong stuff. I guess you just want to experiment, like, if you're going to go for it, you might as well go hard or go home. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I just find it so funny. I mean, there's so much you can talk about with fake IDs, but okay. So I got another fake ID story. It's kind of funny. So I was with another friend of mine, and we're in a resort, and we grew up in the Missouri area, about 4 hours from Lake of the Ozarks, which is a beautiful place to have a resort. And so my whole high school class is there celebrating graduating from high school. And we're all having a good time, and people like to go to the bar, which is the wrong thing to do when you're only 18 years old. And so one of my buddies, he calls up, and I walk over there with him, and he calls up to our friends that are on the balcony or whatever, and he's like, "Hey, throw me somebody's ID. I'm going to go to the bar and get some margaritas with John." And so this guy has dark hair, and and the ID that gets thrown to him is a guy with blonde hair. Like, how random is that? Like, we're so stupid at this point in our lives. Like, we can't even, like, this is very basic. And so I walk over to, this little thing. It wasn't a really good bar. It was like a little thing. And I'm standing there, and my buddy with brown hair presents a license that has blonde hair, and the guy serves us both. And so we go back with our friends. They're drinking beers. We're drinking margaritas. We're just hanging out and whatever. And we used to, like, do drinking games. And so we're in the hotel, and it's like boys and girls. We're all good friends. I mean, we've known each other forever. It's almost like partying with your sister or your cousins than it is like, sex. I mean, I hate to say that, girls, but you feel the same way. So anyway, we get a knock at the door, knock, 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 and security guy comes in, and then it gets kind of scary, and he's like, we're like, "Who is it?" And he's like, "Security," and we're like,
"Security."
God. And so we answer the door, and it's some security guy we haven't even seen. Like, I have no idea who he is, and we've been here a few days now, having fun, partying it up by the pool, drinking tons of beer, whatever. And he goes, "Well, the reason I'm here is because an underage person bought 2 margaritas tonight, and we know they did. And we need that person to come forward. And so that person comes forward. And I guess the security guy was like standing back by the tiki bar. I mean, I don't know how they figured it out to this day. And so anyway, the security guy isn't so fixated on the fact that we had a fake ID. He's fixated on the fact that we probably have 7 cases of beer, uniced, some of which are iced in the bathtub, most of which are uniced, like sitting in the corner of this like motel resort.
Yeah.
He's just staring at that. He goes, kids, he goes, you can't have that beer. Who are 2 of the guys that are kind of in charge here? And I was one of the guys that was in charge. My other friend was in charge. He's like, you need to follow me into the bathroom. And so he proceeded to make us dump out cases of beer. Like, that is the thing in the world, other than seeing a friend of yours, you know, getting a horrible car accident.
Yeah.
Having to dump beer out. And so we're sitting there and we're looking at each other and we're just like, oh, we're just crying. We're just dumping beer after beer after beer out. And I'm dumping them in the sink in the toilet, and he's dumping them in the bathtub. And then we're sitting there, and you know, we're teenagers,
right?
We're on the latter end of being a teenager, and we're smart alecks, and we're smart asses too. And so then we start drinking like half of the beer that we're pouring out. So we're like guzzling it, pouring it out, guzzling it, pouring it out. One of us belches. Security guy, who's now in the other room giving a talk on underage drinking to all our friends, goes, hey, you better not be drinking any of that. So that's kind of my fake ID story, but golly, that was so funny. So to summarize it real quick, the guy let us keep the rest of the beer. Like, at some point, he let us keep the rest of the beer. It made no sense. He made us pour out like 2 cases, which about killed us. Like, I'm surprised we didn't have to be rushed to the hospital because the heart palpitations as we're dumping out beer, because, you know, harder dumping out beer.
That was like a moment where you feel like, oh no, like you're crying, you know, like, no, poor beer, you know, like, well, because you've worked hard, and when you're young like that, that's a lot of money for that beer. You're like sometimes crying over the loss of the money because you're gonna have to go buy more beer. Because you're gonna, like, you can take my beer, but I'm gonna go buy more. So now I'm more or less, I think I'm crying because I'm out all that money, and they have to go trip to go get it back. I mean, seriously, like it's sad. I remember we used to go out to. I have a story about pouring out beer. Underage story of pouring out beer. We would go to Mount Baldy up in Michigan City, which is the town over from where I grew up at, because that's where they had the dunes, the sand dunes on Lake Michigan.
Yeah.
Amazing time. So we would all go out, and I mean, my summers and you know, nice times and stuff like that were out there at the dunes and stuff. There's the Warren Dunes. There's the Mount Baldy. Mount Baldy was this huge mountain of sands, and you would have to go walk down to get to the beach area. But you would literally be like, you could ski down them. They were that high, but it was amazing and stuff. But we were out there one time, our senior year, and we had, like, it was towards the end of the school year, and we probably had, you know, a couple dozen people with us, and we had a keg, and we had because you would bring beer too, so we had probably like 5 or 6 cases of beer sitting there. And security guard comes up. Actually, it was actual police at that point.
Oh, okay. All right.
He come up, and he was like, what are y'all doing here? And, you know, like, are you of age? And he knew we weren't of age, and he could have taken us all in, because, I mean, there was nobody there that had an ID. But he ended up making us pour out all of our stuff. You know what I mean? So the keg, now he allowed that to be removed. They had to take that and take it. But I remember he made us dig this big hole in the sand, and we're all sitting there like, so probably like 6 or 7 of us sitting there with all these cases of beer, and we had to dig this hole. So we're down there and we're all digging this big hole, and he made us pop open every beer one at a time and pour it out.
Yeah.
And we ended up sitting there and he made us pour it out, all of it. And he did. But there was so many of us, and it was in broad daylight and stuff like that. And we had the keg. I mean, if the keg probably would have been there, he probably would have been a little bit more, like just take it. But he was just like, he sat there and he watched us pour all that stuff out, you know what I mean? And he was really cool about it and was like, like, you guys go have fun, and stuff like that. But he did. He's like, I have to,
Wow.
if I'm not going to rush you, I'm going to have to make you pour this beer out, because then I don't, I don't feel as bad letting you guys off after I know you've been out here drinking.
Sure.
So I think they kind of do that as like a little bit of punishment, but at the same time, it's kind of like they don't want to walk away guilty conscious that I just let these kids sit here and drink and not try to do something. And as an adult, you try to always steer a kid in the right direction. It's like what we tolerate back then, or even for ourselves, as you get older, it's a little different. It's kind of like your own kid, they're probably going to drink a little bit, but you're not going to be the one that hands it to them. So it's kind of like, I think, feel like the cops in those times were just like, oh, okay, I have to smack you on the hand, just to do my part as being an adult. But yeah, so there's many stories where we would get, caught with beer or alcohol, liquor and stuff like that. And majority of them would just be like, go. But I came from a small town. They were like, just, you guys go home,
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So, as a parent now, I'm like shaking the hand of a security guy that would do that to a high school person or underage person.
Right. Because
but as an adolescent back in the day, I just wanted to cry.
yeah, me too. It's like, so with my daughter, it's funny because, or my boys, as they were getting older and stuff like that, I try to tell them, it's like, hey, I know you're going to be tempted or do certain things or look at something, but I empathize with you, because I do remember what it's like to be a kid. I always try to do that. As an adult, I'm always trying to look at things from that perspective of, well, what was I like? What would I have done? How would I have wanted to be treated? Or you know what I mean? From a parent perspective and stuff like that. So, with my kids, I feel that makes me a better parent because I'm able to realize to empathize. I'm not just straight to say, hey, okay, here's the book here. This is what you're supposed to be like, da-da-da-da-da. I try to intermix like what it was like. So I never want to lose that childlike about me. I think a lot of times adults start to get older and they forget what it's like to be a child or act like a child, or, and you become so closed off to that your judgment gets skewed because now all of a sudden you're basing all of your reactions and all of your stuff on that. So it's like, don't forget, you're still, can be a little kiddish. You can still have fun, laugh, and stuff like that. And that's some of the best people that I meet are people that are relaxed, that laugh, like they have fun, and because I'm always trying to make somebody laugh or have fun. And I do it with my kids. So I make a point, like almost every day where it's like I tickle them or, I just do something fun with them. And
Right.
And my daughter, I have this thing with my daughter when I'm driving and she's sitting next to me or whatever. And she would just be sitting there and then I'll just like go to grab her, like her chest or something, like grab her. And she'll just be like, oh my gosh, like stop doing that, but it is so funny because it's like, I just want to like be playful with them and get them to let loose,
That's awesome. Well, hey, we've talked a bit about like, you skipping school in high school, but want to bring people kind of full circle. So like about 15 years ago, you started your own business?
Yes. So I moved from northern Indiana. I lived in northern Indiana. My dad was born in Chicago. My mom migrated from Texas up north with her family, and met my father here up there in Indiana. And I decided I wanted a bigger city and stuff. So I moved down here about 16 years ago. And I just kind of fell into the job of mortgage loan processing through an acquaintance that was like, oh, you're really great with math, and you have your degree and stuff like that. You want to give it a try? And I was like, yeah, sure. I was open to anything at that point, of experience. So I accepted the position, and it was normally a position that somebody would take several months to acquire, the ability to do on their own,
Right.
of training. And I picked it up in just a couple weeks, and I was already doing it and spinning it. Not that I was the greatest at that time, but I was enough to where I could operate on my own. And then it just, how good I was getting at it was just kind of speaking for itself a little bit. And then I came across an opportunity to become, do it contract where I was, more or less paid at the closing table through the buyer's proceeds, as opposed through a loan officer paying me or a mortgage company paying me. So that kind of turned me on to the ability to be self-employed by doing it. And so it was just kind of like I just fell into it more or less, and I got really great at it and was like, well, why not, go with it? And I've been doing it ever since, and been growing a company through it, and I got up to the point with it where, I had office space, employees, and expanding outward as far as, getting it to go. And it was a great, venture to go into, and I love it. It's a very profitable company that I still own and operate and work
That's
with
awesome.
and stuff.
And you spent a couple of years being an electrical engineer. I think that's an awesome story that needs to be told.
Well, I actually, I went to Purdue University, and I was enrolled to become an electrical engineer, and was taking the classes and stuff. And I actually never, wanted to do that because Chicago was like really close to us. And I knew that I needed to try to go after something that I was going to be able to make a career at. And I had known an electrician at that time, and he was like, there's really great money in it. So I did some research back then into it. And this, of course, was the days before, internet and things like that, so I kind of was just basing my decision of what it is I wanted to do off of other people's, like knowledge and just talking with me, whatever I was kind of coming into subjection to. And I just happened to be, friends with this boy, and his father was an electrician. And he was just an electrician for the union. And he was like, hey, Dawn, you're really great at math and doing, a lot of handy stuff, even at that age of, 17, 18 years old. And he's like, maybe you should try going into engineering of some sort. So I started doing some research, and not going to lie, I went after it because it was going to be some really great money. And not just as I didn't want to be an electrician per se. I wanted to be an electrical engineer because I wanted to go over to Chicago and do the engineering, electrical engineering projects of the wiring for, like skyscrapers and buildings like that, like the Sears Towers over there and stuff. So that kind of gave me an idea, was like, you could go over to Chicago. It's really close to your hometown. And, you can help implement designs and stuff for these buildings, commercial buildings and stuff. And I got into it. I was a couple years into the classes and stuff. And I decided that I didn't want to pursue it anymore because it wasn't my passion. I wasn't feeling the passion in it. And people would be like, well, why don't you want to keep going and, and stuff and get, the 4-year degree and stuff. And I was like, because I don't want to tie myself into something that's going to keep me tied for something I don't really want to do long term, Sure. So I ended up changing my degree over into architectural technology, and figured I would be better suited probably to design homes and buildings as opposed to the electrical component alone. But I gained such a vast knowledge of it and stuff like that, that I was able to utilize it. And when I had purchased a home, a few years later, after a couple of my kids were born, I ended up utilizing the knowledge of it, though, that I had gained through that, time period to do the do all the electrical work in the house that I was flipping. So I was able, understood code and, and how to run wire lines and stuff, and rewired basically a whole, house, a 4-bedroom house, based on the knowledge that I gained from schooling.
Awesome. Awesome. So I always like to summarize, and so I'm going to say you're a Renaissance woman, and you own your own business. You've just risen to a very high level of success. So I hope that motivates people, especially women that are out there and/or men that are out there that might be struggling, trying to find a way. I mean, we're about comedy, but we're also trying to inspire on the way. So I think that's really important. And this is the time in the show where we promote, Dawn. So I know you're a closet saleswoman, so it's not going to be hard for you to promote your internet endeavors and everything. And I'm sure you're excited to tell everybody. So I'm going to let you tell everybody all about your new internet endeavors. And then I'm kind of a shy person, so then I'm going to tell people about like what my new pursuits are as well. But go ahead, tell everybody about your stuff you got going on on the World Wide Web.
Okay, so I have always wanted to do things to help people. I'm just a natural giver. I'm a natural helper. I just developed my own website, and I did all the design myself. I'm, very computer proficient, so I was able to do all the design and stuff myself. And I've just kicked off probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago on Facebook as my initial platform of trying to pull in followers and people that I can engage with in order to make a difference. I want to make a difference. My ultimate priority is to make a difference, because by making a difference with people and helping them make a difference in their lives and other people's lives, that is my passion in life. And my biggest passion above that is learning. So the more I'm out there and the more I'm learning, the more I'm able to help others with what I've just gained in knowledge. So my website and my platform is going to be based on how I can help others in many, many different ways. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
It's not based on one particular thing. I'm really into health, so I have a lot of nutrition background. My mom was a dietary manager, so I grew up learning a lot about nutrition. I've always asked a lot of questions about health. I've grown up in the realm of fitness, so I have a lot of knowledge and experience in the fitness realm. I've gained mortgage knowledge, so I am familiar with all the different aspects of mortgage, and I've learned a lot along the way. Had many hats when it came to the mortgage industry. I've been an underwriter, we're always changing hats, so
I have other hats.
Yes, I love hats. And so I was able to gain a lot of stuff like that. I've come in contact with a lot of different variations of the positions, when it comes to real estate, to underwriting, a lender aspect of it. And then I've also, done a lot of other stuff. I love to write. And I read, and I dabble in a little bit of poetry and stuff like that. And I want to start utilizing, stuff that I'm coming in contact. I've made a decision here to also write a book. And I'm going to use a lot of the information that I gather from, interactions with people and stuff like that to inspire me and entice, and be enticing for certain ideas that will go into the book and stuff like that. So I've been doing that. But my biggest thing is I just want to connect people. I want to, if I know this person over here and I'm helping them in this area, but I know somebody over here that can help you do something, then I'm gonna try to be that connector.
Right.
So I want to base it on everything meeting needs in different areas. You know what I mean? So it's like, and I've been meeting a lot of professionals, in the production. That's how I met you, in the production realm, in the film industry. So I'm gaining a lot of knowledge on that aspect. You know what I mean? That I want to be able to do that. So the more or less people are like, what is your brand? What are you selling? And it's just like, well, I'm not necessarily selling anything. I'm providing, you know what I mean? And in turn that ends up, selling in a sense, because you're like, I'm over here helping you and I'm going to connect you over here. So I'm selling you on that, selling or helping you on with that, depending on how you want to spin that, you know what I mean? So it is derived around a little bit of sales, you know what I mean? Because I'm going to have products available like nutrition, But nutrition products, clothing products, I'll put you in connection with, maybe an agent if you need an agent. I'm actually getting my real estate license too. So I'm going to be a real estate agent, so I'll be in that realm also. And my platform is going to have access to me of all of those different things that you may need. So you'll be able to go to my website and it'll have a link on there for scheduling times or things with me that you need. So if you want to consult, for the nutrition side, you're going to go in there and it'll give you a scheduling thing where you can schedule a time for me for a consult. If you get to the point where you want me to help you design an eating regimen or a fitness regimen, you can go in there and schedule that time with me, and then I will work with you on that product. I'm doing with the clothing and stuff like that, where you want to set like, okay, I'm not really sure what to buy, people, you would be surprised at how many people want help with, their wardrobes and stuff, especially girls, with fitness and stuff. So they'll be able to go on there and schedule time with me to help them, pick out clothing and guide them on those kinds of instances and stuff like that. So I'll be doing stuff like that, but I'm also doing collaborations with companies that come to me and say, hey, would you like to link up with me on my product? And that's one thing that I do want to say is that any product that I promote or I put out there as far as linking another party up with that particular product, it's not going to be a product that I haven't myself either, tried and respect that product, or that I would buy myself.
Okay. That's awesome, Don. So I'm going to go ahead and tell people about what I do, because this is, the time to promote in the show. So, first and foremost, you'll see in the bottom left, my name is John Sales Warrior, and I've been professionally selling for 31 years, and reaching out to people that, maybe you've been selling for 20 years, maybe you've been selling for 30 years, maybe you've been selling for 5 months. Really doesn't matter. I mean, the amount of knowledge that you can get from just looking and using my material is going to be tremendous. And it's a huge value to you. I've made it so easy to learn my 30 some odd years of wisdom. I have a website. It's saleswarriorinspire.com. I have a book on Amazon. It's called Sales Warrior. It's only $10. I mean, $10, that's like a cheap whiskey drink. I also have a course on Teachable called Sales Warrior Bootcamp Module 1. So this is 7 hours of inspiration, instruction, worksheets, audio, video. The whole idea behind my work is so that, like, when you wake up on a Monday and you just don't want to do it, you just don't want to get out of bed, you don't want to make that phone call, you don't want to send that email, you don't want to hear from your sales manager, the debt collectors, whatever. My stuff is designed so that you have somebody that you can, one, hopefully relate to, and two, somebody that can inspire you. Because, like, I know in my journey of over 30 years, that's what's always been missing. Like, I got Zig Ziglar, I love him. I got Tony Robbins, I love him. I have Tom Hopkins, I love him. They offer me so much, but can I say that, like, I feel like I could go to dinner with any of these guys and we would really relate, and I could sit there and talk about Ozzy Osbourne and my love of heavy metal, and we would feel like best friends? No, unfortunately not. And so, I would hope that that I'm offering something that's different. For you younger people, you can relate to me, and that's so important when you're learning from somebody that you can relate to them. But this has been awesome, Dawn. I mean, having you on the show has just been awesome. And just one little quick thing. So anybody who buys my course is normally $800. I discounted it to $400, and I'm going to give you $100 back if you go online and buy my course. So you'll be able to get my course for $300. And I'm told by my CPA that it is a tax write-off. You consult your CPA. But Dawn, again, this has been wonderful. I have so much fun doing these things. This is going to get so big. And I want to explain to everybody that, like, Dawn is the new co-host of School's Out 80's Comedy Storytime. Like, you're the new co-host. It's so exciting. It's just going to blow up, Dawn. It's going to be so awesome.
I'm very, very excited. This was so much fun, and I'm, just looking forward to being able to get out there and connect, and hopefully something that I say or that I provide, or in a direction that we may put someone, that it changes their life in the better and it puts a smile on their face.
Absolutely. Inspiration and comedy are like the most important things to good health. Like, you can't have good health if you're not inspired to get out of bed. You can't have good health if you spend all your days, like, down in the dumps. And it's like here's the motivational speaker in me, but it's a choice, people. Like, you can either choose to really enjoy life and to evaluate things as being positive and uplifting, or you can choose to evaluate things to be like boring and doldrum and whatever. But it's like a choice. Like, people don't realize that it's a choice. How you evaluate things is a choice. And if you want good health, you have to evaluate things in a positive way, in a happy way. Like, happy people live longer.
Yeah, they do. And if we can find a way by saying something or doing something, that somebody looks at and it's like, you know what? And that is that one little ray of spark that they need in their mind to say, that particular thing right there just inspired me to make myself motivated to do something. And that's what I really hope to do that. I really want to, I think inspiration invokes the change. The motivation keeps you there, so you got to remotivate yourself every day. But if we can say that one thing or do that one thing that just leaves that impression on that particular person. And I think sometimes people that are like that naturally, that are optimists or positive, which, you understand, is that you have to understand that not everybody's built that way,
Right.
So some people, they need that little ray or that little spark in order to, and I want to be that spark.
Awesome. So this has been fantastic. We're going to go ahead and sign off now. It's been a ton of fun. So I'll start by first having Dawn sign off. So Dawn, say goodbye to our listening audience.
All right, everyone. It's been a pleasure. I loved being here with y'all today, and I hope to see you guys come back and get some more of us, and in the meantime, smile every day, and laugh every day. It's been great and wonderful, and I will see you all soon.
Awesome. And from Dallas, Texas, John Sales Warrior just wants to say cheers, everybody.